Good evening, everyone. I'm Alan Jones, Mayor of Winston-Salem. It's my pleasure to call to order this meeting of Winston-Salem City Council, August 7th. We're back in session after taking a hiatus for the month of July, so it's great to be back with my colleagues here on the City Council. We would ask the City Clerk, please, to call the roll.
Councilmember Larson.
Present.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Mundy.
Present.
Councilmember Scipio.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Here.
Councilmember Taylor.
Present.
Councilmember McIntosh.
Here.
And Councilmember Burke.
Here.
Thank you very much. And would you please join the City Council and me in a moment of silence? Thank you. And would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and the City Council? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our Sergeant at Arms tonight is Lieutenant Brian Ashley. Lieutenant, thank you for being with us and Sergeant Bowers is covering for him right there. So we feel in good hands there with Sarge. I'm going to introduce Mayor Pro Tem, who has wanted to recognize a new staff member.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back. I hope your summer is going pretty good. The City of Winston-Salem would like to announce we have a new marketing and communications director, and her name is Veronique George. And I'm going to ask her to come up, Mayor and Council, for just a minute to introduce herself formally to the city and the City Council.
Veronique.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Veronique George, and I have the distinguished honor of serving as the Marketing and Communications Director at the City of Winston-Salem. I'm certainly looking forward to working with everyone. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Now I'd like to introduce a young man who worked with us this summer as a summer intern, James Bo Dalrymple. Bo, if you'd stand up, let us recognize you. Bo is a junior at Elon University studying political science, international and global studies with, get this, a skilled Mandarin Chinese communication proficiency. We didn't learn any Mandarin this summer, but we had a good time. So, Bo, we're glad to have you. You did a great job for us working to get our media work ready to be digitized. And actually, Bo is our second intern for the year. We had a young lady from Winston-Salem State this past spring, Arena Towns. I think we may have introduced her, but she graduated from Winston-Salem State in May and was immediately hired by the federal government. So, great young people around our community. Thank you. So tonight's agenda of the City Council is comprised of a voluntary annexation petition, and there are 6 zoning cases. All of these items are listed as public hearings, and when these public hearings are called, a person in the council chamber will be given an opportunity to speak. If no one wishes to speak, I'll close the public hearing, and the City Council will consider the item. If there is opposition to the zoning petitions, the proponents and the opponents will each be given 15 minutes for presentation and 3 minutes for rebuttal. Again, if no one wishes to speak during this time frame, I'll close the public hearing and the City Council will consider the item. We're televising this meeting live tonight on TV 13, and it will be replayed tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and again Wednesday evening at 9 p.m. Copies of our agenda as well as videos of these previous meetings are always available online at the city's website at cityofws.org, and just click on the Watch Meetings Online option. So we're ready to move forward. Maybe we have the first item on the agenda, please.
Item Z1, public hearing on a petition for the voluntary annexation of approximately 26.118 acres located west of the confluence of Brookberry Farm Circle and Rosewind Lane. The project is known as Brookberry Farm Phase 8, located in the West Ward.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the council chamber who wishes to be heard on this proposed voluntary annexation? Seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed and recognize Councilmember Clark. It's in his ward.
I'll make a motion. If it's second, I'll make just a brief comment. I move approval of agenda item Z1.
Second.
And second. Go ahead, Councilmember Clark.
Brookberry Farm is a very successful residential development on the west side of town. And as it says, this is number 8. As they fill up a section, they annex, or they own more land than has been annexed. They file a voluntary petition, and we keep growing the neighborhood as we go. So not quite finished, but this is getting towards the end of it, but this is just one in a series.
Wonderful. We do have a motion second. Any further discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion, please indicate by voting yes. Anyone opposed, vote no. Everybody voted?
I vote yes.
We can just do it because it's,
There we go.
yeah.
All right, that's unanimous. Thank you, Councilmember Clark. Item Z2.
Item Z2, public hearing on zoning petition of Truist Bank, a North Carolina banking corporation, from GBS to LO. Property is located on the north side of the intersection of West Haynes Mill Road and Raven Road. Located in the Northeast Ward, Planning Board recommends approval of petition.
Is there anyone in the council chamber who wishes to be heard on this proposed rezoning petition? All right. Seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed and recognize Councilmember Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. I move for approval of the statement of consistency for approval of this item, and 2, W-3581.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Burke, seconded by Councilmember Scipio. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please vote yes. Anyone opposed, vote no. And that is unanimous. Thank you. Item Z3.
Item Z3, public hearing on zoning petition of Jesse Carr and Catherine Everhart from RS9 to PBS. Property is located on the west side of Beecham Road, north of Meadowlark Drive. Located in the West Ward, Planning Board recommends approval of petition.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the council chamber who's opposed to this rezoning? I know the petitioners are here if there are any questions. All right, seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed and recognize Councilmember Clark.
I received no comments on this. It was unanimously approved by the Planning Board. I therefore move for approval of 1, the statement of consistency for approval of this item, and 2, W-3582.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Councilmember Clark, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Adams. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor, please indicate by voting yes. Anyone opposed, vote no. And that is unanimous. Thank you, Councilmember Clark. Item Z4.
Item Z4, public hearing on zoning petition of Church of God trustees from RS9 to IP. Property is located on the north side of Kernersville Road, east of Wintergreen Road, and west of Martindale Road. Located in the East Ward, Planning Board recommends approval of petition.
Thank you. Is there anyone in council chamber who wishes to be heard on this proposed rezoning? Seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed and recognize Councilmember Scipio.
I move for approval of 1, the statement of consistency for the approval of this item, and 2, W-3583.
Second.
Thank you. The motion by Councilmember Scipio, seconded by Councilmember Taylor. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please vote yes. Anyone opposed, vote no. And that is unanimous. Thank you, Councilmember Scipio. Item Z5.
Item Z5, public hearing on zoning petition of Grand Silo Investments LLC from RM12S to RM18S. Properties located on the east side of Grand Silo Way, north of South Park Boulevard. Located in the South Ward, Planning Board recommends approval of petition.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the council chamber who's opposed to this rezoning? The petitioner is here if there are any questions. All right. Seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. I'll recognize Councilmember Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could I have a brief presentation on this? I think it's important to know the number of units that we're generating in the South Ward.
Mr. Murphy?
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council. I will try to be brief. This is again, a request of Grand Silo Investments LLC for 8.83 acre piece of property on the east side of Grand Silo Way from RM12S to RM18S. The reason for the request to go from RM12 to RM18 is actually due to the height restrictions in RM12 versus RM18. There's actually a net decrease in the number of units proposed in this site plan amendment versus what was originally approved back in the mid-2000s. This is the location there in the South Ward to the west of 150 there along South Park Boulevard. This is the subject property highlighted in yellow. You see it is in an area that has a lot of multifamily and commercial zoning surrounding, a lot of units already constructed out there. This is the subject property, again, shown on the countywide arrow. You can see some of it has previously been cleared. You see the stream area there on the eastern side adjacent to modern Toyota. The area plan recommends intermediate density residential up to 18 units per acre. These are some site photos of the existing site and the area to be developed. This is the existing building. This was the plan that was approved back in the 2000s. You see those buildings that kind of wrap around that existing building on the east side of the entranceway into this overall project. This is the proposed site plan. Again, the existing unit and the 5 new apartment buildings along with the clubhouse. Here are some of the elevations. They range from some 2-story buildings adjacent to the single-family residential to the north to some 3- and 4-story buildings and a 3-4 split, and that's what this represents. Is you've got 3 stories on the front and half a story buried on the backside where you're going towards the topo is sloping down towards the creek there behind modern Toyota. The request is consistent with the recommendations of the South Suburban Area Plan. The request proposes additional screening to further buffer the development from the RS property to the northwest. The request would result in 28 fewer units than the original approval for this portion of the development, but this does still propose over 100 new residential units to be constructed on this site. This was heard by the planning board at their July 13th meeting. There was someone there who wasn't really in opposition, but had a few site plan concerns that had actually been resolved prior to that meeting. Their main concern dealt with some of the cross-parcel access and maintenance agreements that are continued to be worked on by the developer and the existing condo association. Following the public hearing, the planning board did vote unanimously to recommend approval of the request. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions to Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. That explained a lot. This is a build-out, basically, of an earlier project from 2000, and we're glad to see it come to fruition. As said, such, I move forward and move approval for the statement of consistency for approval of this item and for 2W3584.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Councilmember Larson, seconded by Councilmember Taylor. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor, please indicate by voting yes. Anyone opposed, vote no. That is unanimous. Thank you, Councilmember Larson. Z6, please.
Item Z6, public hearing on zoning petition of Spindra LLC from RS9 to RSQL, properties located at the southwest corner of West Academy Street and Brent Street, located in the Southwest Ward. Planning Board recommends approval of petition.
Thank you. Before we do go to the public hearing, and we do have proponents and opponents, Councilmember Mundy would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some folks did get this word. It was hard to get it out at the last minute, but it could affect comments and anything else at this point. The original RSQL request would include multifamily units. That includes triplexes and quadruplexes. The largest concern that I heard from the neighborhood was about quadruplexes. They didn't want anything that large. The Spindra is interested in a duplex, so they voluntarily agreed to strike the word multifamily from this petition, which would take out of play triplexes and quadruplexes, would still allow duplexes and duplexes and twin homes. So what we will be voting on today is an amendment or an amended petition that will not allow multifamily, only duplexes and twin homes.
Thank you, Councilman Mundy. All right, we'll now go to the public hearing. Opponents, again, have 15 minutes for presentation, and the opponents would have 15 minutes, and each side would have 3 minutes for rebuttal. For the proponents, Wendy Sloan, please. If you would, everyone state your name and address for the record.
Wendy Sloan, 2824 Moccasin Gap Road, East Bend.
Would you pull the mic over towards you just a little bit there, please? Thank you.
Is that better?
Well, I hope so. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Do I need to repeat it again?
No, I think we got that part.
Okay. Well, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and a member of the City Council.
Good evening.
I'm here representing Spindra, which unfortunately had already planned a vacation in a different country, and they can't be here. They're the owners of 1700 West Academy Street, Sandra and Spencer Bowles. They wanted me to come up here and speak on their behalf to eliminate the use of residential building and multifamily from their request. I will say, as a real estate agent, that we are in a shortage of housing right now and rentals. We get a lot of requests, or I do phone calls for people requesting, looking for rentals and homes. Definitely a need for short-term rentals also in the area, no matter what part of Forsyth County that you're in. But I just wanted to make that statement also. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, before you sit down, would you, I know you said this, but would you just say affirmatively that the petitioner does agree to strike the multifamily portion from the petition?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
Anyone else for the proponents? All right, we'll now go to the opponents. John McMillan.
My name is John McMillan. I live at 1608 West Academy Street. Good evening, Mayor Joines, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, and members of the City Council.
Good evening.
I am here to represent a number of my Ardmore neighbors to express our concerns about the rezoning request for the lot at 1700 West Academy Street. The lot is currently in an RS9 zone, which allows only single-family residences. I do have a petition I would like to present. This is several pages that have been circulated for that residents in the neighborhood have signed, and also names from an online petition. There are over 150 names. I was going to mention the updated communications about Spindra willing to drop the multifamily. We do welcome that. But even with the removal of the possibility of multifamily residences, we do still have a number of concerns about this request and the potential that it has to begin to alter the characteristics of the historic Ardmore neighborhood. We do have concerns about the consequences of rezoning this house to allow more units. Such changes will add to the number of people, cars, and trash and recycling carts in the area. This is particularly significant for the lot in question. While the address is on Academy Street, the entrances and the parking for the house are on the Brent Street side where there are no sidewalks. But our concerns go beyond that. Living in Ardmore, we are accustomed to landlords and renters in the area. We know that there are duplexes within the neighborhood. Many of these duplexes are in sections of Ardmore that are already zoned RSQ or RM5, which allow for duplexes. The duplexes that exist in areas zoned RS9 and RS7, which only allow for single-family residences, were already set up as duplexes before the current zones were put in place. In other words, there was no need to rezone in order to allow for those duplexes. The bigger concerns for us come with the actual rezoning of this lot and potential subsequent repercussions. This request would change the lot from RS9, allowing single-family residents, to RSQ limited. Under an RSQ designation, the current or a future owner of this 12,000 square foot lot could subdivide it, leaving a duplex on one 7,000 square foot lot, and build another house on the remaining 5,000 square foot lot, which also would have to be accessed from Brent Street. This would lead to even more congestion in the Academy Street section of the neighborhood, which has busy traffic and daily use by Fire Engine 6, ambulances going to and from the hospitals, and police cars responding to calls. I would like to point out that in 2013, the City Council denied a similar zoning petition, also requesting to allow for a duplex on Brent Street. Also, on page 19 of the 2016 Southwest Ward Plan update, it states, single-family residential development is recommended for existing individual lots and small tracts of land in existing single-family neighborhoods. It took considerable money, time, and effort of city leaders and citizens to create the legacy plan and the ward plans. And to my knowledge, the recommendations in those plans have not been amended. It will be troubling if the city begins making zoning decisions counter to what the plans recommend. There are also concerns among neighbors about reducing the number of available single-family units, making it more difficult for first-time home buyers who would like to settle long-term in the neighborhood. When investors are outbidding others and flipping or renting properties, this does not necessarily translate to affordability. This council's decision regarding the current request will set a precedent. If it is approved, it stands to reason that more such zoning petitions will come before the council, and not only from Ardmore, but from other areas of Winston-Salem as well. Approximately 1/3 of the houses on Brent Street between Academy and Ardsley are currently being rented. We could see more rezoning petitions in this area in the near future. This begs the questions. How closely can we expect our elected officials to follow the recommendations of the legacy plan and the individual ward plans? And how will the city council weigh requests of rezoning petitioners against the wishes of the neighbors? Again, while we welcome the removal of multifamily residences from the petition, I'm asking on behalf of dozens of concerned neighbors that this board considers the points I've expressed and decline the proposed rezoning of 1700 West Academy Street. I would like to ask those in the chamber who are opposed to please stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. Emily McMillan.
Hi, my name is Emily McMillan. I live at 1608 West Academy Street, and I thank you all. I thank you for your communications with us and your answers to our questions and responses to our concerns. We are here as spokespeople, as Mr. McMillan said, to the concerns of many people, and I want to just follow him by emphasizing the 150 signatures so far that have come in opposition, and they have come as people have become aware of this. So we have been communicating with people to let them know about what's going on. People are very unaware, and just in the past few days, the word has gotten out and through emails, and so that's something to point out when you realize that you may say, well, we've only heard from a few, and so I want to point out that people are opposed when they are finding out about it. That's really important. What really strikes me is that these 150 signatures of opposition are of people who chose to live in Ardmore, and the one owner, the two people who chose not to live in Ardmore, are asking for a special privilege for this rezoning. I recognize that the city is looking at a big plan and big housing concerns, and we are also looking at a big long-term plan for our housing concerns in our neighborhood. I refer to the 2016 decision that has not to date been amended as far as we know, but it's just important for us to know that these decisions that are made in the proper timing with education and communication and not rushed to the disillusionment of the constituents. So I hope that you really will take to heart how important this is to us in an already very dense neighborhood with small houses and small yards. And as it was pointed out, it's just a really dense place already. And we chose to live here for the charm and the historic, and we would like for that to be honored. Thank you very much for your concern.
Thank you. Julie Magnus.
Julie Magnus, 630 Fenimore Street, Winston-Salem 27103. First, I'd like to thank the compromise that has come that has brought this piece of property to a duplex twin home situation. I think it's a wonderful compromise. But I would like to state, and the reason I'm up here on the opposition side is the rumors that were flying around about what this property was going to be as soon as that letter went out were pretty crazy. And I read the letter, it was sent to me, and I thought it was representative of something that we have going on in city government right now. Years ago, there was a lot of reach out to the citizens, and a lot more citizens had a lexicon of zoning in their back pocket. I feel that is really, really gone, and that letter was crammed with just about every inch that it could be, and it wasn't something that the average citizen really could understand. And I know that Councilmember Mundy agreed with me on that, because I contacted him and said, hey, and he agreed. I think he's maybe taken some action on that. And I think we need to look at that if maybe there had been some better communication on this right from the very beginning with the letter that went out, perhaps some of this wouldn't have happened. As far as the wild rumors go. Parking decks, where did that come from? At any rate, I think that by maybe being a little bit more inclusive with language and education to the general citizens, especially as we see a lot more zoning changes coming down the pike that are going to help with infill, that we really need to look at that, because if people are met with education, there might be a lot less resistance. But when you get slapped with a letter like that, I think the first thing that happens is that you resist. I do have one question as far as how this zoning change came, and I don't know that I'd need an answer here, but it seems that this was already essentially a family apartment, but it wasn't an apartment. There was open. It wasn't closed. It wasn't 2 units. Whether it was permitted or not, would this new zoning just have automatically permitted this change? I'm assuming it would, since it could be a quadruplex before the agreement came down. But whereas the construction of that addition was done in the 90s and would be grandfathered, the question is, when it was closed off to become 2 units, does it meet the current building codes with firewalls and things like that we've been assured that with ADUs in homes, that would be a protection to the increased density where we're all so close together. It's really all I want to say. Like I said, I think this property has been a duplex essentially for a long time, just not 2 separate living units, and I think that the compromise is a great thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Magnus. Is there anyone else for the opposition that would like to be heard? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to clarify something.
Please give me your name and address.
Sally Spring, 1501 Berwick Road. And just to clarify, it wasn't a duplex. It just was an extra room added on for a family member. And the main thing that we wanted to, and now I'm starting to get nervous, and thank you for listening. 2 things. One is it possible to have this house with an attached ADU? We heard at the last meeting that a duplex could have an ADU, et cetera. Could it be that this house could have an attached ADU, remain as an RS 9, and then it would solve the request of the owners? I'd really like to bring that forward. The other thing is it's really important for people to realize that Ardmore is very small. They don't, some of these houses don't have driveways. That's really important to realize. And if they do have a driveway, often it's just for 1 car. I mean, I have a friend that has a house and they have a driveway, but the one person has to park in the driveway and the other person has to park in the front because it's not enough room in the front of the house for a car. I mean, you have Sherwood Forest where you can do circular drives and all kinds of things, but not here. And so it's really important to understand the congestion. And so when you have people on Brent Street walking in the middle of the street, it's not that it's so bad, I guess, it's just that it's more congested. And we have to look at what is unique about this. I think it's very, very important. And then there was one more thing, if I can remember, as I'm getting older, it's harder, and I wasn't going to speak. I do think that it's important to realize how many rentals are in Ardmore. In the 2016 document that everybody, I'm sure, is aware of, for the Southwest Ward, it states that over about 40% are landlords. I mean, we are used to landlords, or Ardmore's used to landlords. But if this person can do an RSQ, why can't everybody else? And that's the problem. It's one duplex is nothing to add, one extra person in a house. That's nothing. But when you think about 22 houses on Gales just over next to it that are landlords, when you think about 13 on Brent Street that are landlords, when you think about 27 here and another street, these little side streets, it really is a concern. And if nothing else, please do a study. I mean, the study that was done before included not just Winston-Salem, but it included the county and it included citizens. I mean, I think it's really important to look at what this neighborhood is and see it as a unique property, because it is a very unique property. Thank you. I didn't really want to talk, but I think those are important points. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Springs, and maybe Mr. Murphy will comment on that during his report. Anyone else for the opposition? Yes. Got about a minute left.
My name is Jean Sabo. I live at 505 South Sunset Street, Sunset Drive. Emily mentioned that the information to the residents has been slow in coming, and most of the people that I started canvassing yesterday did not realize what was happening. They had not received any information on it. I would say that I canvassed about 20 houses, and on my street and one other street, the majority of the people, I think I got 15 signatures. 2 people were not in. 2 people one was having a dinner party, the other one was in the bathtub. They told me they were inclined to sign the petition to come back the next day. I just want to say, to me, if that's an example, I would think the overwhelming majority in the Ardmore section would strongly oppose this.
Thank you very much. We're about out of time on the opposition. We'll go back to the proponents. You would have 3 minutes for a rebuttal. Ms. Sloan.
I would just like to add to what was said is that change is inevitable. The population growth changes every year, more and more. So regardless of what things go on in life, there's just growth, and we have to grow with it. Second of all, I would like to say personally, with some of the comments that I've heard from some of the folks, I feel like this has been blown out of control, from a 7-story apartment building on the corner of Academy and Brent Street to, just total blown way out. Second of all, or third of all, I would like to say that we cannot control how many people live in each residential home. So you could have 10 people living in one home with one driveway, 6 cars, 2 of them in the driveway, 4 of them out in the street. You may have 15 people in one home. You may have 2 people in one home, 1 person in one home. That stuff cannot be controlled. But here we're looking at 2 driveways at this property already, and one driveway will be set up for the individual 1-bedroom unit, and the other 2-bedroom unit will be set up there with the driveway also for that property, which it's just 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms. The home, when they purchased it, each one had its own individual access door. So one person gets one end of the home in the yard, the other renter gets the other end of the yard in that driveway. I think that's about all I've got to say about it. Thank y'all for your time, though. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Sloan. Anyone else for the proponents on the? All right, we'll now go back to the opponents. You would have 3 minutes for rebuttal if you'd like to add anything.
Julie Magnus. I am going to sound like a broken record to planning staff here. We may not be able to control the number of residents. We know that we need more places for lots of people to live. But what we need to think about moving forward, and Councilmember Mundy has heard this from me lots, planning staff has heard it from me lots, we need to start looking at street collections. Neighborhoods like Ardmore, West End, Washington Park, West Highlands, West Salem, a lot of people don't even have driveways. They might be up steps elevated, and originally their garbage was collected from an alley behind their house. There's no place for all these yard carts, garbage carts, whatnot to go. There's no place for brush collection that, even though the website and the official word is gets, picked up once a month, is more like every 3 or 4 or 5 months, depending on. I know mine has sat that long, and I keep it very nice and tidy, so it's not in anybody's way. There's a pile sitting at the corner of Irving and Elizabeth right now that is halfway out into the street, and it's large, and it obscures your vision. We need to start looking forward to what we're doing, because we do not have safe streets, and as we increase density in our urban neighborhoods, it's going to increasingly become a problem, because every unit is going to have their own set of carts. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for the opposition? All right, seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed and ask Mr. Murphy if he would give the report of the planning board.
Good evening again. Yes, this is the petition of Spindler LLC for a .29 acre tract on the southwest intersection of West Academy and Brent Street, located in the southwest ward, and the request is from RS9 to RSQL. Here's the subject property shown on the Legacy Growth Management Area Plan map, located in GMA2 urban neighborhoods. Here is the subject property shown in yellow. You'll notice the green circle. That is the 500-foot notification area where staff sent the mentioned notice to, and Councilmember Mundy and I have spoken about that, and we have already implemented a tweak to that letter to provide a little more detail on the back end of the paragraph. But anyway, that is the notification area that is required by ordinance, those folks within that green area to receive a mailed notice. Here is the subject property outlined in yellow on the aerial imagery there along West Academy and Brent Street. This is the subject property shown on the Southwest Winston-Salem Area Plan Update adopted in 2016. It does recommend residential buildings single family, 0 to 8 units per acre. Here is looking at the existing house on the subject property from Brent Street. Academy Street is to your right, and if you look in the distance behind that vehicle, you can see the fire station along Academy Street in the background. This is looking southwest at the subject property from the intersection of Academy and Brent. That's the sidewalk along Academy Street looking towards the west, heading towards the west. This is looking northwest at the subject property from Brent Street. That is the aforementioned house that's on the subject property, and this is part of the rear yard there along Brent Street. This is looking south along Brent Street. The subject property is on the right. This is looking west along Brent Street. You see the rezoning sign and a fence going up on the property line in between the subject property and the next property along Academy. This is looking east along West Academy. The subject property is to the right. That's looking back towards Peters Creek 150 if you keep heading east along the road there. The requested uses for this RSQL request is for the uses residential building duplex, twin home. We've already heard from the petitioner's representative their desire to remove the use residential building multifamily, so that is struck on this slide. Residential building single family and the use urban ag. The request is consistent with some of the recommendations of Legacy 2030 that look for increased densities, increased infill. While the request is not consistent with the specific land use recommendations of the area plan, the RSQ purpose statement states it's generally appropriate in areas well served by services and transit. The request would encourage the development of a mixture of appropriate residential densities and housing types in an area close to employment and services. The request would allow for the development of needed missing middle housing. This was heard by the Planning Board at their July 13th, 2023 public hearing. There were 3 speakers in opposition. The opposition did raise concerns related to the impacts to traffic and parking if this were approved, the loss of neighborhood character, conflicts with the area plan recommendations, and potential impacts to property values. Following the public hearing and discussion, the Planning Board did vote unanimously to recommend approval of the request to the City Council. The petitioner has submitted a written request to eliminate the use residential building multifamily, and again, you heard that confirmed again tonight. So with that, I am available for questions. I know there were written down, so if anyone will remind me specifically of questions you would like answered, I will try to answer those.
Answer, Chris, if you would, because you and I had this conversation. I suggested it as well. Why it doesn't.
Than 500 square feet. I'm not sure what the sizes are, but in this case, they would be able to do a duplex. That the addition was made to the existing house. I'm making an assumption that that existing house will more than likely be converted into a duplex. And as such, there's enough lot area where that lot could be subdivided, have enough lot in RSQ, enough area in RSQ zoning for that to be a duplex, and leave an existing 5,000 square foot plus lot for another single-family home. Per the ordinance, an accessory dwelling unit is allowed as an accessory use for single-family residential, so the new lot could have a house on it and an ADU that met the requirements of the ordinance. The house that exists currently, if it were to become a duplex, could not have another dwelling unit, could not have an ADU, because an ADU is not a permitted accessory use to a duplex. It's only to a single-family residential structure. So the answer to your question is they could have 4 total units. Duplex on where the existing house is, and this with our staff, based on what they wanted to do, the only logical district that would work would be RSQ.
They've never discussed the dividing of the lot and putting in another house on that smaller parcel. Has not been part of their articulated plan?
Yes, it has been.
It has been?
Yes.
So their plan is to put another house on the lot?
That's my understanding. Certainly what they're requesting would allow that, and that's what they indicated to us that they would like to do.
So that would explain the Q zoning would allow that to happen?
Yes, sir.
I think that's kind of important. Thank you.
You finished, Councilmember Larson?
That answers the question.
Okay, good. Any other questions?
I've got a comment after we motion's made.
Let's go ahead. I'll recognize Councilmember Mundy. If he's ready for a motion, we'll get it.
I'm ready for a motion and also have some comments
Yes,
after
sir.
the second.
Absolutely.
I move for approval of 1, the statement of consistency for the approval of this item, and 2, W3586.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Mundy, seconded by Councilmember McIntosh. Councilmember Mundy, we'll let him go first, and then we'll go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A lot of reference has been made to the legacy plan of 2030. It was developed in 2016 before Gen Z started moving out on their own, before we knew what their housing needs were. It was before COVID, which changed the world in many ways, including whether people worked at home or whether they worked somewhere else. So in recognition of this, many other communities have already changed their previous plans, and we're in the process of that. We're creating, is it Vision 2045? Is that?
Forward
2045, in recognition of the fact that many of our zoning ordinances and much of that legacy plan needs to be changed to meet current needs, not reflect the needs that we had in 2016. So that's one thing that we're working on. The other thing I want to say is just totally coincidental. I was very good friends with Jean Wooten, who owned that house, so I've been in that house many times. And her mother, Mama Doris, bought that house, and she added that room on so that Jean could come live with her. They had separate entrances. They have separate driveways. Each driveway can accommodate 2 cars, so you can get 4 cars without any parking on street. So the folks who said there was no wall is correct. They were separated by a door, and Jean told me they could lock it on either side so they could have their own privacy. But for all intents and purposes, it has served as a de facto duplex. It wouldn't create any more congestion, any more traffic than what it has for the past number of years. And compared to many homes in Ardmore, it is equipped to handle that kind of extra vehicles and so forth. And the other thing is we always have to balance the wants and needs of individual neighborhoods and with the larger needs. And right now, we know that our largest need is housing, and that's not just big developments. That also includes infill and these opportunities to get 2 or 3 more units. And it also, for us, as we try to recruit younger workers into Winston-Salem to fill these jobs of the businesses that we've recruited, their desire is not to live on the outskirts of town in an apartment. They want to live closer to the city, and in order for us to appeal to that demographic, we have to make those housing opportunities available. So I heard the concerns, I weighed the concerns, but I also had to compare that to our greater need for the community.
Thank you. Councilmember McIntosh.
First, I want to say that I lived in a duplex at the corner of Hawthorne and Academy back in the 80s. Duplexes have been part of the Ardmore neighborhood for ever and ever, since the 20s, many of them built as duplexes. I want to pick up on what Kevin was talking about with the Legacy 2030 plan, and that we are in the process of redoing that. We redo them because things change, demographics change. The number of single-person households has increased dramatically. I kid my son when I tell him he's one of the problems that's causing the increase in demand for housing. The millennial group demographic is larger than the baby boomers. There are more people reaching prime age for home buying right now than at any other time in our history. That pressure causes house prices to rise. If we don't make accommodations for them in areas that we already have streets, we already have sewers, we already have sidewalks, we already have fire stations, we already have schools, what happens is they move further out, as Kevin was saying. When that happens, the cost to the entire community goes up dramatically. We have to furnish all those new utilities. We have to furnish those new schools, police stations, all that stuff. So it's cheaper for everybody in the city to allow for what's called gentle density. This is not a high rise. This is what planners refer to and think of as a very sort of low-hanging fruit way of accommodating more people who want to live in close to the city center, and hopefully use public transit and Uber and whatever. This demographic that we're dealing with, who wants to buy homes or rent homes close to downtown, are also not as car dependent, which is something that we absolutely want to encourage. But when you push development out to the outskirts, you end up increasing the amount of car usage, which has environmental impacts and all that stuff. So anyway, I'm obviously in favor of this. I think this is a good compromise, and I will be supporting it.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? No, we do have a motion to approve. Excuse me.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I did want to acknowledge that Julie had raised some very valid points and some things that we do need to work on because of the existing density and the difficulty of providing city services in Ardmore. That is something that we need to look at, and I appreciate your bringing that up in front of council.
Thank you. Mr. Larson.
I would like to say that I'll be voting against this, and let me just explain why, because I think it's worth noting that we have area plans and we have zoning for very specific reasons. And people invest in their homes, their life savings and whatever into the plans that are presented. I don't care when they were presented, whether it's 20, 25, 16, whenever. And they're counting on the security and the constancy that these plans offer. And then when city council decides, all of a sudden they're going to do spot zoning, basically, is what this amounts to come in and change a plan, basically, and have, set a new precedent. I mean, I don't think anybody's objecting to maybe a duplex, but when you start talking about opening up RS9 to the whole neighborhood, it has a profound impact and basically it negates what has been offered before. I have a problem with that, particularly when the individual homeowners, life savings and whatever are invested in their neighborhood and in their homes and planning to spend their life in these particular places, and then suddenly they're confronted with something that they hadn't planned to be confronted with. So that's the reason I'll be voting against this.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
The one thing that everybody can agree on here tonight is that we got a housing problem. And it's not just Winston-Salem, urban Winston-Salem, county Winston-Salem, the state, the country. Just as we were allowed as boomers to have an opportunity to have a place to call home or a place to be our own, that is not necessarily the case now. And I think all of us need to ask, so does that mean that because we're in, and most of you've heard me say this, and the heck with everybody else that's not in with it right now? As Councilmember McIntosh said, our millennials, Gen Z, X, every one of them, they want the same things we wanted. They want a place to have their own stuff, their car, or the Uber pick them up, place that they can order DoorDash or whatever that they do, play their music and not be in your house. They want their own space. That's part of being in America, is having your own space if that's what you want. If you are up to date, or I advise all of you, and maybe you have, please go out and Google and research what is happening in our country. It's the housing prices that are also driving inflation right now. And we are in a precarious situation. I just got back from a conference in Rocky Mount with elected officials from around the state. There was not one subject that was talked about that everybody wasn't in agreement with, and one of them, the top one, was housing, and then on top of that was services, public safety, police, water, transportation, streets, environment, all of it. All I ask us to do, the neighborhoods, and don't get me wrong, I was born and raised in this city. My mama and my sister and my aunt and a lot of other neighborhood women cleaned houses in Ardmore. So I know all about Ardmore. I know the transition it went through with Baptist or Atrium or whatever you want to call it now. But your neighborhood is not the only one, whether it's Buena Vista, or whether it's West Salem, whether there are other neighborhoods, Brookberry and others, or anything in the urban city that was basically in a time was hands off. We living in different times right now. And it is hard for the 250-something thousand residents of Winston-Salem to understand that there are certain places that we can zone to build, and there are certain places that we can't. Again, I'd like for you to go look at your North Carolina General Statute on some of the new zoning laws that have taken place over the past 2 years. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, the game has changed. And all of us are gonna have to figure out how we're gonna do this together, and that everybody can have an opportunity to have a place to stay. My neighborhood is residential, but that doesn't mean that that's the end-all be-all. Again, I got 44 houses that went up during COVID behind my house. I didn't like it either, but I have learned to get along with my new Wake Forest graduate and senior students. They can tell you I'm a very neighborly person now. But the point is, there's gotta be somewhere for people to live. Please go look at the updates on zoning in Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham, Greensboro, Wilmington, Chapel Hill, Asheville, and as well as all over the country. If you're very unhappy with the way zoning is, I suggest you get in touch with your state legislatures, because again, the city can only do what the state law allows us to do or mandates to do. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Councilmember McIntosh. You good?
I'm good.
All right, we do have a motion on the floor to approve this rezoning. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by voting yes. Anyone opposed, vote no. The motion passes, voting by 6 in favor, 2 opposed. Councilmember Larson, and I didn't see the second one.
It was me.
It was you. Okay, Councilmember Scipio voted no. So we now go to item Z7, please.
Item Z7, public hearing on zoning petition of Suso for Harper Hill LP from PBS to GBS. Property is located on the southeast intersection of Country Club Road and Vinegar Hill Road, located in the West Ward. Planning Board recommends approval of petition.
Is there anyone in the council chamber who's opposed to this rezoning? I know the petitioner's here if there are any questions. Seeing no one, I declare the public hearing closed. I'll recognize Councilmember Clark.
Mr. Murphy, if you could give 2 minutes. This is a little bit of an
Talk really
unusual.
fast.
Yeah, that's a challenge. Don't count my time getting ready. There we go. This is a special use rezoning request from PBS to GBS there at Harper Hill Commons. This is the subject property shown on the Growth Management Area Plan map. It's located in GMA 3 in a activity center. Here is the subject property there at the entrance to Harper Hill Commons and Country Club Road, there across from, I believe, the Bojangles. Subject property shown on the countywide aerial imagery. It's an existing building there. Area plan recommends commercial, so we're consistent there. This is the existing building. There is a vacancy there. Someone is wanting to put some type of an animal, dog-related kennel type related use there. I just know it's animals. And as a result of that, the property is zoned GBS, which does not allow, is zoned PBS, which does not allow the use kennel indoor. The GBS does. That's what they're requesting. As part of their request, there are some use conditions that are in the ordinance for the kennel indoor use. And if you're going through special use district zoning, you can ask for a waiver. There are some 40-foot setback requirements from adjoining property. Since this is an existing building, you can't meet that 40-foot setback on the front and the side and the rear, so they are requesting that waiver as part of their approval request. This is consistent with the area plan. It's consistent with the character of the area. It's consistent with legacy. This was heard at the July 13th Planning Board meeting. There were no speakers in opposition. It was unanimously recommended for approval.
Does the petition specifically say cats only?
It does not.
But they're all indoor?
They're all indoor, correct. It is all indoors.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Clark?
As y'all know, I come from a dog family. I have 3 dogs.
Yes, you do.
Who were very opposed to a cat hotel in the neighborhood. But I assured them this is an existing building. It's all inside, and therefore I move for approval of 1, the statement of consistency for the approval of this item, and 2, W 3587.
Second.
Motion second. Motion by Councilmember Clark, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Adams. Any further discussion or questions? Not. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by voting yes. Anyone opposed, vote no. And that is unanimous. Thank you, Councilmember Clark. We do, council members, as you know, have a need to go into closed session, and I'd asked Pro Tem Adams if you would read the motion to go in closed session. Oh, yes.
Chris is trying to.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chris.
I'm sorry. While we do have a lot of folks here and we are on TV, if I could just make a shameless plug, was mentioned earlier, Forward 2045 comp plan is underway. We've been doing some survey. We have a website that's available now. We'll be doing some public meetings coming up in the fall, but for folks that have not participated, have not completed the survey yet, if you would go to forward2045.com, survey in there. A lot of the things that you heard tonight as far as issues with housing, other things, are questions that need to be answered. So if I could just put in a plug for that for folks to participate.
Forward45.com.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, now, sir, you're out of order.
I move that the city council go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A 1, 4, 5, and 6 to 1, discuss information and provide direction to staff related to the location or expansion of industries or businesses within the city limits, and 2, discuss information protected by GS 160A 168 and provide direction to the city attorney regarding the compensation and other material terms of a proposed employment contract.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Adams, second by Councilmember McIntosh. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We will go into closed session. motion to end the closed session?
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Clark, second by Councilmember McIntosh to end the closed session. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're out of closed session into open session. Where am I at? I'm in the wrong seat.
I tell you, you can't take a month off.
No, I can't remember.
Can't remember where you sit.
So we're back into open session. Council members, I would recognize Mayor Pro Tem Adams for a motion. She's ready.
You do the motion to end the closed session?
We did.
Okay. Sorry.
I move that the Winston-Salem City Council approve the employment contract for W. Patrick Papade as city manager.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Adams, seconded by Councilmember McIntosh to approve the employment.
Do a hand, are we doing a hand vote?
do a hand
We're going to try,
Doing the-
we can do the, okay, all those in favor indicate by voting yes. Anyone opposed, vote no.
I'm going to do a hand vote.
I'm not going
Not
to be able
showing.
to.
We don't have a
I'm on.
closed session. Oh, here we go.
It's up.
It's up. It's up.
No.
Monday hasn't.
I did a hand vote, because I closed down, but I can open it back up.
Dana, I've still got a connection issue.
She can vote for you.
Monday.
Vote for you.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Oh, here we go.
Okay, the motion passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor, 3 noes. So the motion passes, and we will pass that along. Thank you. All right, we do need a motion to adjourn.
Move for adjournment.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Adams and second by Councilmember McIntosh to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We're adjourned.